Okay, welcome back to Tech in 10. My name is Tommy Heffernan, Precision Microbes.
Yep, Ryan Duffy here.
Okay, so each week we're going to cover a topic in under 10 seconds.
10 minutes. We're good, we're not that
good. 10 seconds, right? Or 10 minutes, genie macaroni. We're going to cover heat stress here this morning. So again, look, how much knowledge have I on heat stress? I'd say it's limited, but it's an interesting topic. We're going to give it a go.
Yep, definitely.
So we better start now. My taste is going to go, off we go. So heat stress, and we're talking about heat stress. Look, it can affect any animals, but with cows, right? So one thing I have noticed, again, I keep saying I'm traveling a little bit, but I am getting into different, going over to the UK, seeing animals in houses. You know, one day, I think it was a couple of weeks, it was 34 degrees, right? So I was struggling. Most of the cow indoor sheds over there, they nearly all have fans now.
Okay.
All right. Typically, when I was in college, which was a long time ago, heat stress was, it was out in the Middle East,
yeah,
or Australia or New Zealand. Like it's a huge issue. But is it now something that may affect cows? What is it? What's the temperatures? I'm just going to write some temperatures here on the board.
And for our international viewers.
I don't know. So what's that in Fahrenheit? Anyway, so basically, I'm supposed to try to position this that I think this is something we might have to think about in our cows, right? So I did a lot of work on cow biology and behaviour, and I found this figure that cows' ambient temperature is around 4 degrees.
Okay, so they're happiest at 4 degrees.
Why?
Which is very different to a calf now, because we often talk about that thermoneutral zone being, 15, 20 degrees?
15 to 20 degrees,
yeah,
because of their ruminants.
Okay, yes.
So what's the rumen?
It was a fermentation vat.
What will that do?
Well, it's producing a lot of heat, a lot of metabolic heat.
So cows are quite happy in colder temperatures, in my experience. Again, if I look at wintertime, I would never say that I've ever closed in a cow shed as a part of my advice.
Yes.
Okay, roof is probably essential. People talk about outdoor cube because of weather. So cows are kind of comfortable at lower temperatures.
We probably see it even feeding them in the mornings, where you have the animals here and the heat is literally rising off them, compared to calves where you don't see that.
Which is the stack effect ultimately.
The stack effect, and I often say cows have like a hot water bottle underneath their bellies or underneath their skin, whereas calves do not, and that's why calves need a warmer environment. So this makes perfect sense. So
the question is, and the literature will say different things to you, and again, this is just my observation, from going around to farms, over 25 degrees is when farmers possibly start observing. Now, it's probably earlier, observing the signs of heat stress. And I think over 30 degrees, you're going to see it in cows. So we can look at the physical every day with dairy cows, obviously. You're going to see milk drop. It's probably earlier that if someone's going to shout in literature, oh, it's 21 degrees, it's 18 degrees. Oh, you're correct, well done. So, but generally people will say, this is what I'm observing on farm. Okay.
So once it's going over room temperature, ultimately you're starting to see
potentially, but effects. Now humidity is another factor, of course, but we certainly in England now, when you're visiting farms, they're getting over 30 degrees. So it's a real issue, and obviously as that times there's more cows indoors, so you have outdoors and indoors here, which is something we can talk about. And actually, interestingly, with indoors, I think I was saying to you before I started, most of the indoor units I visit now, they all have fans. They all have fans, some way of moving air, because obviously moving air through sheds, particularly on cows, will lower temperature and will really help.
Yeah, they're very moist animals too, aren't they? Like, they're producing a lot of moisture, so if you're removing that, that's going to reduce the humidity. And naturally enough, if you have fans producing cooler air or pushing warm air out, you're going to reduce the ambient temperature, and that's kind of the combination of what we're trying to achieve here with heat stress, isn't it? It
is. And again, from traveling, what I've seen, I've been in very warm countries where they use misting systems. Yes. You don't need to see that in sort of UK, Ireland, and don't think you see it in Europe, but see it in Israel, the Middle East a lot. You see it typically over there where they actually have to increase the moisture in the sheds. Now, we're not there yet. We better come back to Ireland, okay? The world is not burning completely up yet, but temperatures are rising. And I think we're going to have to factor in heat stress in the summer months. So what's the practical things people can do? Okay, indoor systems, fans, you can put stuff through water, but I've got cattle or sheep or cows out in the summertime. It's coming up over 25 degrees. That's my mark there where I think we need to look at. So 2 things I think we need to think about is shade and just understand the volume of water that's consumed and required.
Yes.
All right.
It's interesting there because I know you're talking about indoor systems, but outdoor systems, so grazing systems like Ireland, where cattle start looking for shade. We did a video last week about flies and stuff like that, and mastitis. We know that strep uberus loves being found underneath trees where it's nice and damp and moist, and flies love that too. So cattle will seek out shade whenever it's really warm here, and we have to kind of understand what the ramifications of that are.
Okay. Well, I think shade is something, look, again, it's a long-term play. Having cattle in shade, don't underestimate when they go. I think from my talking to farmers and observations on farm, and a milk drop is one, but a milk drop can be, if you've got cattle or whatever, it's going to affect performance. Having shade outdoors. One thing I'd like to highlight for people is the amount of water that animals, I'm going to write in water again, the amount of water that cattle will drink during that kind of heat is huge.
But go back to fermentation vat, that rumen. This is what's driving a lot of those reactions. So they need that to even function, let alone produce quite a liquidy product. So how much water would a cow typically consume in normal conditions?
So very interesting. I've seen this data with Terra Nutritech system because they measure water in the Irish grazing system.
Cool.
And if you see in moist conditions, cows can be down as low as 20 litres, but they go up to 100 litres, your adult cows, in very warm conditions. Because obviously in very warm conditions, the dry matter of grass is going down as well. The dry matter is going up and water content of grass is lower. So to me, all I think of when you have high temperatures, you can practically do is make sure you have good water, good flow rates, good troughs, and animals can get plenty of water. If they can get shade as well, brilliant. One thing I observe is with robots, again, in grazing systems, when it goes over, this is only an observation, when it goes up over 25, closer to 26, 27 degrees, the cows tend to spend more time staying in the shed and not out of grass.
It makes sense. You do the same yourself.
Yeah, so, and the other thing, if we think about, black and white, black obviously attracts heat, so just shade and water. I think if you think about heat, it is something, it's probably one of the biggest factors in some of the very warm climates where cows produce milk. You think of Middle East, I was in Israel, it's probably one of the biggest factors. That's where you look at airflow. In the UK now, any indoor system I've been in, they have some type of fan system. The types of fan can vary massively. What you want to get is, you want to get airflow through the shed, but ideally you want air get flowing down on the cow.
Right, so we're going to see milk drop. We could potentially see reproductive ramifications, particularly depending on where the animal is in terms of pregnancy. How am I going to know? How am I observing this? What do cows look like, Tommy, that are under pressure? It's
a good question. I mean, it's the same. It's almost the same as ourselves. They're not eating. They're seeking out shade.
Okay, so voluntary feed intake is going down.
Yeah.
Would you say they're panting or respiratory rates up?
I would say respiratory rate is up. You could just, again, I probably should have looked up the actual symptoms. When you go in, it's very obvious when you see cows. You can just see that they're just not lying down. They're not ruminating. Rumination is another thing that would be down.
Yes.
It's probably infrequent at the moment in Ireland. Certainly if you're farming in the UK, you're going to see more of it. What else would I say? I think what's really interesting when you look at heat stress, this has a massive impact on fertility in countries like where it gets very warm in America and Middle East. Even an intergenerational. So what I've seen, the researchers looked at the fetus inside the cows is actually affected by heat stress. So anyway, that's probably a complete aside.
But depending on where we're at, it's going to hit conception rates. It's going to affect a fetus. Could affect pregnancy rates. It could affect a number of submission rates. It could affect pretty much every reproductive parameter that we try and achieve.
So we're looking at heat stress as something that may be there. At the moment, people talk about putting stuff through water as well. I think for the most part on most farms, when it's warm, having good flow rate in water is key.
Okay, very good. Well, it's all adding up. It kind of makes sense what you're trying to advocate here for. But it seems to be becoming more and more. I'm having conversations about this more and more every year. I'm sure you're probably having more
Yeah.
and more conversations. The country is unfortunately getting warmer in the summer, and we're getting these bottlenecks. So it's something that we have to be aware of in
Very
Ireland.
good.
Yep.
That's it?
Yeah, I think I'm happy enough with that.
Good, yeah. One to watch for the future.
Brilliant. Thank you.